In the beginning, there was nothing. Well, not nothing. There was a speck. No, something even smaller than a speck. It was the universe. But something happened to our universe. The event that happened to it is called the Big Bang.
Oh man, I haven't seen a person in like 3 years. Been hiking out here for a long time. I have a great story to tell you. It's about the Big Bang. 13.8 billion years ago, the Big Bang occurred, sparking the start of the gigantic expanding universe we know of today. Now, some questions might be going through your head right now. Like, how do we know that the Big Bang was the real cause of the universe? Oh, we'll get to that later. It's a long story. But for now, let's start at the beginning.
Studied how the universe was created for many years, but the closest to the Big Bang we could get was 10 to the minus 36 seconds, or 1/trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a second. At that time, we believed that the universe expanded faster than light itself. Perhaps the universe doubled in size 100 times or even more past that. To sum up the last few things I've said, it can all be explained by a brief period of inflation. What is inflation, you ask? Well, inflation looks like a balloon. It inflates as you add more air, but that's not the thing that we are talking about today. During inflation, a sort of dark energy smoothed out the universe, as well as made it accelerate. The only thing is that, well, dark matter wasn't really here long. Instead, the dark matter turned into ordinary matter and radiation through the process we call reheating.
So the dark energy was just a temporary thing, but technically it's still around today. As we stated, the dark matter turned into 2 other substances through the process of reheating. Oh look! It's a house! Let's see if anyone's inside. If not, let's explore and mess with their belongings. Well, no one was home, it looks like. Maybe we should get a snack. What do you think? What? What are you asking? Why was the universe reheating, you ask? Well, after inflation, the universe became cold. Like, really cold, like that freezer over there. Only after a while did it start to warm up. And due to this, dark matter split. Now where's... popcorn. Perfect. Let's start this up. Now, this cooking right here is an example of microwaves. No. Don't look silly. Not this. This is a microwave. What I'm talking about are the things inside cooking this wonderful meal of popcorn using microwaves. Which ironically, it's an ironic name for a side microwaves, what do you think? Oh man, so glad there's popcorn in the house. Sorry. Let's get to our next topic already. Next topic, atoms.
During the first 3 minutes of the universe, the light elements were born during a process known as Big Bang nucleosynthesis. Temperatures cooled from 100 nonillion Kelvin to 1 billion Kelvin. That's a lot of kelvins, I can say that right now. And protons and neutrons collided to make deuterium an isotope of hydrogen. 10 seconds after the Big Bang, protons and neutrons form nuclei. More specific, hydrogen and helium nuclei. After the nuclei forming, it took 300,000 years to form the first atom. The universe was finally cool enough at that point for nuclei to hold on to electrons. 400,000 years after the Big Bang, gravity starts to pull together hydrogen and helium atoms into large clumps. While this process is happening, the atoms begin to speed up and start to produce gas, which was way too hot than it should be. After a while, the hydrogen atoms start to fuse together due to speed and form helium, which releases a huge amount of energy, which makes the gas glow. This process is the birth of a star, which also means that this is the birth of galaxies as well. Our sun was formed in this way 4.6 billion years ago, which in turn also formed the planet we live on today, as you know, called Earth.
Man, I can finally get some peace away from that guy. Follow me everywhere. Hi there. Let me tell you my story now. Now that we know everything we talked about was formed, how it was, let's get into our next subject. How do we know this exactly, and who found it out? Let's start at the first people of interest, back in the good old BCE years, the ancient Greeks. Now, these guys discovered some amazing stuff back in their time period. They named some planets, they did a lot of things. Let's get into more of that.
Ptolemy believed that Earth we are living on is the center of the universe. This theory of his was called the Geocentric Theory, based off of the word geo, which was Greek word for Earth. Ptolemy had been looking at the stars for a long time, and he noticed something. He used mathematics to discover that all the planets move in epicycles, or smaller circles to be more precise. Ptolemy was great at noticing this, but the only thing is, he is wrong, just very wrong. This is Aristotle. He too believed in a geocentric universe, and that the planets and stars were perfect spheres. Although he thought Earth itself was not. He further thought that the movements of the planets and stars must be circular since they were perfect. And if the motions were circular, then they could go on forever. Just like Ptolemy, though, his theory was on the completely wrong side from the correct theory. Over 1,000 years later, a man named Nicholas Copernicus came up with a radical way of looking at the universe. He put the helio, or the sun as we call it, at the center of our solar system. He was not the first to have this theory, but it was Copernicus who brought it into the world of the Renaissance and used his own observations of the movements of the planets to back up his idea. His ideas, including the revelation that the Earth rotates on its axis, were too different for most of the scholars of his time to accept. They used only parts of his theory. Those who did study his work, in fact, often did so in secret. They were called Copernicans. Other than the ones who wanted to know what was the center of the universe, we had other people who wanted to figure out more than that. We go to our next astronomer, Johannes Kepler, who discovered the 3 major laws of planetary motion. The laws go as followed. Number 1, the planets planets move in elliptical orbits with the Sun at one focus. 2. The time necessary to traverse any arc of a planetary orbit is proportional to the area of the sector between the central body and the arc. And 3. There is an exact relationship between the squares of the planet's periodic times and the cubes of the radii of their orbits.
Wow, this is amazing. I've never seen space like this before. It's not like, oh, sorry, I didn't hear you walk up. I was just looking through this marvelous telescope here. Oh, I'm so glad I have this. Our next great space understander is actually the person who invented this telescope. His name was Galileo Galilei, my hero. And in 1609, he made the first telescope. And with this telescope, Galileo found many things in space, such as mountains on the moon, sunspots, and even the 4 moons of Jupiter. Yes, I am talking about the giant planet that is the 5th away from our solar system sun. This really pushed evidence for his theory that other planets revolve around the sun instead of the Earth. This frightened the popes, so they put him on trial. They thought that he was a sin for not agreeing with the Bible about how they think the Earth is the center, while his evidence proves that the sun is actually the center of our solar system and that the planets revolve around it. Anyways, moving on.
Ever seen anything fall or just go towards the ground? Well, of course you have. You wouldn't be a human if you didn't. Because that is called gravity. It's everywhere. The man who started that whole thing and is our next subject is Mr. Apple himself, Sir Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton developed the 3 basic laws of motion in the theory of universal gravity, which together laid the foundation for our current understanding of physics and even the universe. Now, this one might be a little wrong only because Einstein has a lot of stuff written about him. Einstein was a great scientist, but for the Big Bang Theory, he only made some sweet equations that we use today to find out more about the Big Bang. But he took Sir Isaac Newton's laws of gravity and built upon it to create the theory of relativity, which discusses time, gravity, and how they relate to each other. This is a man who was the first to put it all together and give it a name. It's Georges Lemaitre. Georges Lemaitre was a Belgian Roman Catholic priest / physicist and astronomer. He is usually credited with the first definitive formulation of the idea of an expanding universe and what was to become known as the Big Bang Theory of the origin of the universe, which Lemaitre called his hypothesis of the primeval atom, or the cosmic egg. The man who discovered what the basis is for all theories is Edwin Hubble. Hubble went to discover Cepheids in multiple nebula and proved in a 1924 paper called Cepheids in a Spiral Nebula that galaxies exist outside of our own. In 1926, while developing a classification system for galaxies, Hubble discovered an odd fact. Almost every galaxy he observed appeared to be moving away from the Earth. He knew this because the light coming from the galaxies exhibited redshift. Light waves from distant galaxies get stretched by the expansion of the universe on their way to Earth. This shifts visible light toward the red end of the spectrum. Other than the Big Bang Theory, there was another more steady theory. It was called the steady state theory, and Fred Hoyle simply loved that theory. Fred Hoyle was an English astronomer and cosmologist, primarily remembered today for his contribution to the theory of stellar nucleosynthesis, and his often controversial stance on the other cosmological and scientific matters, such as his rejection of the Big Bang theory in favor of a steady-state universe, and the panspermia theory of the origin of life on Earth. He is considered one of the most creative and provocative astrophysicists of the second half of the 20th century. The first prediction of the existence of rellect radiation, or radiation remaining from the Big Bang, was made in 1948. From who, you ask? Well, none other than the two great men, Ralph A. Alpher and George A. Gamow. Next people we are talking about are two guys who found what the last guys did completely by accident. On May 20th, 1964, American radio astronomers Robert Wilson and Arno Penzias discovered cosmic microwave background radiation, CMB for short. The ancient light that began saturating the universe 380,000 years after its creation. Bell Labs' Holmdel horn antenna in New Jersey picked up an odd buzzing sound that came from all parts of the sky at all times. The noise puzzled Wilson and Penzias, who did their best to eliminate all possible sources of interference, even removing some pigeons that were nesting in the antenna. Night of December 6th, 1979, Alan Guth had the spectacular realization that would soon turn cosmology on its head. He imagined a mind-bogglingly brief event at the very beginning of the Big Bang, during which the entire universe expanded exponentially, going from microscopic to cosmic size. That night was the birth of the concept of cosmic inflation.
Now that the important people have been talked about, I'm going to take a second, go back to the Big Bang, and shed some light on some confusing things, and also talk about the future of our universe. Oh look! It's Fortnite! Oh, as you may know, this game is the #1 in the world. I'm gonna play this puppy later. But anyways, let's get into something I like to call, I love this part, the Force!
At the time of the Big Bang, the temperature was extremely hot. It was 1 trillion times hotter than the core of the sun. At this temperature, the 4 forces we know today, gravity, strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, and electromagnetism, were joined together as a super force. To be honest, not a lot is known other than that. Our sun being as old as it is, which is 4.6 billion years old, off of everything else, it seems like our sun's going to die at some point, right? Well, astronomers predict it'll reach the end of its life in about 10 billion years. Every 1 billion, it gets brighter. The human race is predicted to die in about 1 billion years, because the sun will get brighter, water will evaporate, and we need water to live. So, cosmology, the Big Rip, is a hypothetical cosmological model concerning the ultimate fate of the universe, in which the matter of the universe, from stars and galaxies to atoms and subatomic particles, and even space-time itself, is progressively torn apart by the expansion of the universe at a certain time.
Well, in conclusion, that was the Big Bang Theory. That was the people who found it out. That was how it started. And little Flamingo here is proud of it as I turn myself around. Oh my God, it's a crook! I gotta escape before I turn into his duck!